Is it cruel to restrict visitors postpartum in the first days and weeks after giving birth? Let's talk about it because I feel like this, from what I can tell, it's a very divisive topic and a lot of people have a lot of feelings about it. And let me begin by saying that my husband and I are in kind of a unique situation in that my in-laws, they all live in the same city as us, so we see them all of the time. On the other hand, my parents live in the UK and my sister lives in Trinidad, so whenever I see them, it tends to be a ring-fenced trip and we only have a limited amount of time together. And this made it really difficult when it came to visiting the baby. The original plan was that my parents and my sister would come for a few days before the birth, stay for 2 days after, and then my dad and my sister would leave and my mom would stay to take care of me and help me with the baby in those first few weeks. As we approached the birth, I started to feel a little bit like if I only have a week for my dad and my sister to come and visit, I thought to myself, is it better to use that time before the baby gets here and have them only see the baby for 2 days just so they don't miss that first newborn stage? Or is it better to wait a few weeks and have them visit in like 2 weeks' time once I'm in the swing of things, once I'm kind of in my rhythm? My husband and I made the decision that we would prefer for them to come a little bit later. They were able to change their flights, and so my sister and my father have not met my son yet. It is so hard. There's an element about it that's so sad, but I think given the limitations that we have, it's probably the decision that I would make again, having seen what I've seen and experienced what I've experienced in the last week. All of that said, I very much saw postpartum as almost having like two phases. First phase was about recovery, me finding my feet as a mother, figuring out breastfeeding, having a chance for my husband and my son to bond. And then that second phase is about the celebration of a new life, the celebration of a new family member, and that's where I saw the role of other people in the family coming into play. With that in mind, we sent a message out to our family basically saying, please bear with us as we navigate this new chapter. We will let you know when we're ready for visitors. To be fair, that message was sent out before my sister and dad had changed their flight. So when that message was sent, they were going to be here for 2 days following the birth. A lot of people had a lot of feelings about this. They said, it's not fair that your family get to see the baby and his family don't. I'm a boy mom here and I would be so hurt. And here's the thing, for me, it was always about my recovery and it was not about my relationship to my in-laws. I have a great relationship with my in-laws. I love my in-laws. But I was so mindful of wanting to be able to have that time to recover, have that time to figure out breastfeeding. While some people are happy to whip out the girls in front of their father-in-law, in front of their brother-in-law, I just don't feel comfortable doing that. And so I was mindful of all this going into it. So my husband and I ended up doing 24 hours in the hospital with no visitors. And this was amazing because it really gave us time to tap into the support that we were offered at the hospital. It gave me time to try and figure out breastfeeding. When my breastfeeding wasn't working, I spent all my time in hospital, unless we had visitors, which we did on that second day, with my top off in our private room just trying to get my milk going. And I wouldn't have been able to do that if we'd had the expectation that visitors would be there from the get-go and that they could pop in whenever they wanted. I really wanted to ring fence that time. Now on the second day, my in-laws came, so my mother and my father-in-law, my sister-in-law, her husband, and my mom came. My mom was the only one of my family who is in Miami because her role, I see it, is very much predominantly to help take care of me. My recovery has been made so much easier because I've been able to rely on her to make me food, help me when I don't know what to do. Like, she's just been such a support for me. And so I saw her role of being part of my postpartum experience predominantly as being a support for me versus as being there just to coo over an adorable baby, which, side note, he is absolutely adorable. This came to life for me when my in-laws came with my mom and they walked into our room. And at first everyone goes to the baby, of course, but after like 2 or 3 minutes, I was sat in the bed, my mom was giving me a back rub, I'd had a really rough night, and while my in-laws were around the baby, my mom was taking care of me. And I remember that in my mind so clearly. Of course, and this is, I think, the point that I'm trying to make to everyone who's like, mother-in-laws matter. Of course, mother-in-laws matter. But there is a difference between a mother's mother and a mother's mother-in-law. I think if my husband had gone through something, it would be his mom giving him a back rub. He'd gone through a bad labor and had been up all night. She'd probably be taking care of him. This is why I have seen it as being very different roles that family members are playing. And in that first beginning, what I've really needed has been the support of my mom. Along that line, when my in-laws came to visit in hospital, there was 7 of us in a room. I was struggling to breastfeed. Getting my milk going was a challenge. So I then had to leave to a corner of the room, close a curtain around myself with my mom and pump to try and get my milk going. It's not a big deal, but it's little things like this that it just made it a little bit more challenging for me to do what I needed to do to get my milk going, which I knew was a priority for me. So I think if I had my time again, I probably would have said no visitors in the hospital at all, because they then returned the next day, which again, they didn't stay for long. They stayed for maybe like 30 minutes to 45 minutes, but it just makes it that little bit harder. And I think if we'd ring fenced the hospital stay as us being able to just recover, that would have been my preference. Since we've come home, I'm at a point where I'm feeling better and I'm kind of finding my feet. It feels like a more appropriate time to have guests. And it's so funny because I was speaking to the nurses in the hospital and I said, is it normal that people don't have visitors after the birth? And they said no. They said normally people have their whole family come visit. And I could not imagine going through what I went through with an audience of predominantly my in-laws or even my family. Just being able to focus on myself was such a gift that I'm so glad I gave myself in that first 24 hours postpartum predominantly, but also like in the first little while afterwards where we've really just been protective over our space. We've had visitors, but we've made sure that the visits are short. And I think one more thing to note is that when I had my myomectomy, I felt so bad. I'm going to make a separate video about this. My recovery in my C-section has been like night and day, and I was anticipating the recovery to be reflective of my myomectomy recovery, which it has not been at all. I haven't been taking painkillers since I came home. I've been feeling good. My main challenge has been the breastfeeding, which again, like I don't like the idea of whipping out the ladies in front of the men of my family. So it's been good to have a little bit of space to have privacy, to just like, I've literally been living topless in my house at the hospital, just trying to like protect them from getting too sore, give myself an opportunity to practice. So that's where we ended up. I hope that helps. Let me know what you think. I know it's such a divisive topic, but if I had my time again, I would do 95% of what we did the exact same. And I'm really happy with where we've ended up and I'm feeling good. I think my in-laws feel good, my family feels good, and I'm so excited for my dad and my sister to come in a few days' time. It's in fact given me something to look forward to. So that's the bright side.